Hey everybody, you want to know how to practice interviewing? Well, the key is to do a mock interview. And in this video, I'm going to show you a great way of doing this, because I know you're interested. Don't pretend you're not. Okay, let's dive in. Number one, what you need to do first is get yourself a partner, okay? Somebody who's going to help you do this practice interview. Now, this could be a friend or a family member. Don't listen to people who tell you that, you shouldn't use a friend or a family member. For our purposes here, it's perfectly acceptable to do this. And the other thing is that if you feel a little bit sensitive, a little bit nervous dealing with a close family member or a close friend, that's actually good because that helps simulate what you're probably going to be feeling when you go to an actual interview, okay? So it's all good. Just get a partner to help you. Partner in crime. Okay, now, once you got that done, we're gonna move on to this, okay? These are the essential questions in a job interview. These are the foundation upon which job interviews are based, okay? When you go to a job interview, you're pretty much almost guaranteed to be asked each and every one of these. Now, the thing is, they may phrase them in a different way, but it's always the same questions, okay? So things like, tell me about yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why did you leave your last job? Why did you apply for this job? Now, also, if you have a gap in your work history on your resume, you're going to need an explanation for that, okay? Especially if the gap is between now and the previous job you had, okay? You're going to have a well-rehearsed, coherent explanation for this, okay? Now, when you learn the answers to this question, okay, these questions, there's all kinds of resources that you can have. I've got videos on my channel. I've done videos on each and every one of these, okay? So naturally, I prefer that you check those out because they are, after all, the best answers to these. However, there's a ton of stuff on the internet. You can also get a variety of opinions. And if you do that, I don't think you can go wrong, okay? If you know the answers to these and you have them memorized, okay, you're 50% of the way there. Okay, now as I said, these questions can be phrased different ways, and that's usually what happens. You go to a job interview and they're asking you these questions, but they're asking you them in different ways. For example, instead of saying, what are your strengths? Instead, the interviewer may ask you, what makes you think you're the best candidate to do this type of job? Really? It's the same question, and you give the same answer, okay? So don't be fooled by the different phrasing. It's still usually those same 7 questions that you always encounter, okay? Now, you wanted to know what the fun part is? Well, this is it. We're at the fun part, behavioral interview questions, okay? Now, these are very trendy. You're pretty much guaranteed to be asked these, okay? And the thing is, if you don't know what a behavioral question is, it's a question that usually starts with, tell me about a time. And you answer by giving a story from your past, okay? That's how you answer the question. So how do we prepare for these? Well, first of all, I want to say it's tough to answer these without any rehearsal or preparation on the spot, because recalling your entire work history in a situation when you're nervous is actually very tough, okay? So you need to have good answers prepared. But it's actually simple to prepare for these. What you do is you prepare 5 success stories, okay? 5 of your most shining moments, and you're gonna practice saying these stories in a compact way that's coherent and people can understand, okay? You're also gonna prepare 5 of your least shining moments, okay? 5 times you've failed, okay? These are the questions that they're probably gonna ask you more, okay? So you prepare 5 success stories, 5 failure stories, you have them on the tip of your mind, and the idea is that whatever behavioral question they ask you, you could pull out one of these 10 stories and it would serve as an answer to whatever behavioral question they ask you, okay? Now, there's a little bit more to this, okay? Keep in mind that when they ask you behavioral questions, you're probably going to have to answer, tell me about a time that you failed, okay? They're going to ask you, tell me about a time when you had to deal with stress or you had to work under pressure. Okay, tell me a time that you had to accomplish a goal or that you failed to accomplish a goal. Tell me about a time when you displayed exceptional time management skills, or tell me about a time when you failed at time management. How did that go? What did you do? Okay. Tell me about a time that you had a miscommunication between you and somebody else. What did you do? How did you resolve it? Okay. And also, interviewers today love conflict questions. Okay. So when you have conflict with other people. So tell me about a time you had a problem with the previous boss. What'd you do? How do you resolve it? Tell me about a time when you had a problem with a coworker or a customer, or if you're a manager, a subordinate. Okay? These are questions that are very popular and that there's a good chance you're going to have to answer. So be prepared. Okay, now, if you want to really be a rock star here and prepare well, okay, get your partner to go to Google and Google behavioral interview questions, okay? And what you're going to get is a bunch of articles with tons of sample questions, okay? And get them to ask you 5 to 10 of these questions in a mock interview, okay? Just random behavioral questions. This is going to really get your skills in shape to be able to adapt your stories to whatever they ask you. And it's going to give you some confidence too when you see that you can do this well, okay? So that's another part of this. Okay, towards the end of every job interview, usually the interviewer asks you, do you have any questions for us? Okay, I have an exceptionally amazing video on this, so I highly recommend you check that out. I will put a link to the playlist in the description of this video, okay? But the bottom line is that it is bad if you say no. No, I don't have any questions, okay? You should have questions. You should have questions prepared, okay, on the tip of your mind. That's what you got to practice here. So have your partner ask you this question, and you got to handle it well. Okay, now that's all the questions. Now, depending on who you are and what your skill level is at for when it comes to interviews, you may need to do some extra stuff like this, okay? You might have to practice walking into the room, greeting the person, saying hello, introducing yourself, okay? Shaking hands, right? They actually offer courses on how to shake hands. I've never taken one of those courses, but you know, you'd think it would be like a 5-minute course, but it's not. They talk for a couple of hours about that. I've always wondered what they say. Anyway, that's beside the point, and I'm definitely going to edit this out. Practice your posture, standing, sitting, you know, if you're sitting at the table, right? Placing your bags, phone, you know, personal articles appropriately and professionally. Practice eye contact. Depending where you are in the world, what region you are, depending on the culture of that region, it may or may not be appropriate to look people in the eyes when you're talking to them. Certainly in the West and a lot of like in Europe and stuff, it certainly is the custom to look people in the eyes when they are talking to you. And it's a sign of confidence, it's a sign of professionalism. So if that's the culture where you are, and you're the type of person that kind of averts your gaze, you don't look people in the eyes because you're nervous, you may wish to work on that. Okay, this is a great opportunity to do it. Okay, also body language, you know, the way you sit and all that kind of stuff, it's very important. Okay, so this is a great opportunity to work on this stuff. Now, some notes here, okay? Usually what happens is that job searches, they don't happen overnight, okay? You don't always get another job overnight. There's kind of a transition period, a period where you're between jobs. Now, obviously you're going to be discovering and applying for jobs during that time, but time you got, okay? So doing this with some of your time is an incredibly good use of your time, okay? It will pay off many, many times. I wanted to say manifold, but I don't think people use that word very often. Now, obviously, you got to practice on your own before you start with mock interviews, okay? You got to learn the answers to a lot of questions. You got to memorize them, and then you're ready to do practice interviews, mock interviews, okay? So do that first. And just as an aside, I want to say that there's a hell of a lot of private HR companies, okay, private HR firms that offer this service. And there's a lot of executives and professionals paying a lot of money to get people to do this with them, okay? They do the mock interview with you. And also at the end, they give you feedback. They say, this is how we think you did. This is what we recommend you work on, and stuff like that, so that can be a very useful tool, so if that's you, this is something that you might want to check out. For most of us though, doing this with a friend or family member is perfectly fine. It's perfectly sufficient, okay? You can even do it remotely, right? If you're affected by certain global events that have occurred recently, most job interviews will be remote anyway. And if you do your mock interview remotely, that's even better. It's appropriate. It's good practice, okay? Now, if you actually do this, instead of just watching this video, okay, but you actually do mock interviews, okay, within a very short time, you will learn how to interview like a pro, okay? Like a boss, like a proverbial boss. That'll be you, okay? This has incredible results. So I highly recommend that you engage in this. Don't just watch the video, go out and try and do it. Get yourself a partner and practice this stuff because it's the best way to prepare for real-world job interviews. I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much for your attention. Don't forget to subscribe and join my channel for extra videos if you're, the kind of person who's into that kind of thing. And I will see you on the next video. Take care.